The diner went silent the moment they walked through the door. Not the kind of silence you get when someone drops a glass or when a couple argues too loud. This was different. This was the kind of silence that crawls up your spine and sits in your chest like a stone. 6 men in black leather vests, boots heavy against the linoleum floor, chain wallets clinking with each step. The patch on their backs told you everything you needed to know. Hell's Angels, Northern Arizona chapter. The kind of men who didn't need to raise their voices to command a room. The waitress stopped mid-pour. A trucker at the counter kept his eyes on his coffee. A family with 2 kids quietly asked for their check. Nobody made eye contact. Nobody moved unless they had to. And then, from a corner booth near the window, a voice cut through the tension like a blade. Calm, steady, fearless. Hello, sir. My daughter has a tattoo just like yours. Every head in that diner turned. Not toward the bikers. Toward the old woman who had just spoken. She was small, maybe 70, with silver hair tied back and hands folded neatly on the table in front of her. She wasn't trembling. Wasn't looking down. She was looking right at the man in front. The leader. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a gray beard and eyes that had seen too much. His name was Cal Mercer, though nobody in that diner knew it yet. He stopped walking. His crew stopped behind him. And for a moment, the only sound in the room was the hum of the refrigerator behind the counter. Cal's jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. Not in anger. In something else. Something heavier. He took one slow step toward her booth, boots creaking. And when he spoke, his voice was low and rough. What did you just say? The woman didn't flinch. She repeated herself, slower this time, like she wanted to make sure he heard every word. My daughter. She has a tattoo, just like the one on your vest. Cal's hand moved to his chest, fingers brushing over the patch sewn into his leather. A skull with wings. Faded, worn, but unmistakable. He stared at her for a long moment, and then he asked the question that would change everything. What's your daughter's name? The woman's voice didn't waver. Marianne. Marianne Hayes. The diner stayed frozen. But inside Cal Mercer's chest, something cracked wide open. That name hadn't been spoken inside the club in over 12 years. Before we continue this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because what happens next in this diner is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about loyalty, fear, and the people society tells you to be afraid of. Now let me ask you something. When you see a group of bikers walk into a room, what's your first instinct? Be honest. Do you look away? Do you assume the worst? Do you grip your wallet a little tighter, keep your head down, hope they don't notice you? Most people do. And that's exactly what everyone in that diner was doing. Except for one woman. Eleanor Hayes. 72 years old. Retired nurse. Widow. Mother. And the only person in that room who wasn't afraid. But here's the thing. She should have been. Because the men standing in front of her weren't just bikers. They were enforcers. Protectors of a code most people will never understand. And the tattoo she just mentioned? That wasn't just ink. It was a mark. A promise. A blood oath that hadn't been called on in over a decade. So why did her daughter have it? And why did Cal Mercer look like he'd just seen a ghost? Let's go back. 12 years earlier. Las Vegas. Summer heat thick enough to choke on. A stretch of desert highway 20 miles outside the city limits. That's where it happened. Cal and 2 of his brothers were riding back from a run. Nothing unusual. Just 3 men, 3 bikes, and a long stretch of empty road. Until they weren't alone anymore. A black SUV came out of nowhere. No headlights. No warning. Just speed and intention. It rammed the back bike. Sent the rider tumbling across the asphalt at 70 miles an hour. The other 2 tried to brake, tried to swerve, but the SUV boxed them in. Forced them off the road. Into the dirt. Into the rocks. Cal's bike went down hard. His shoulder dislocated on impact. His ribs cracked. Blood in his mouth. Dust in his eyes. And through the haze, he saw men getting out of the SUV. 4 of them. Armed. Not cops. Not rivals. Something worse. Hired. Professional. They were there to send a message. And that message was written in violence. Cal's brothers fought back. One of them, a man named Tommy Vega, took 2 bullets to the chest before he even got his hands up. The other, a younger rider named Kyle Brennan, managed to grab a tire iron and swing it hard enough to crack one of the attacker's skulls. But he went down too. 3 broken ribs. Collapsed lung. Internal bleeding. Cal was the last one standing. Barely. He threw punches. Took hits. Felt his vision blur. Felt his knees buckle. And just when he thought it was over, just when he was sure he'd die on that desert road, a car pulled up. A old sedan. Rusted. Dented. Out of place. The door opened, and a woman stepped out. She wasn't big. Wasn't armed. Wasn't a fighter. But she didn't run. She shouted. Loud enough to make the attackers turn. Loud enough to buy Cal 5 seconds. 5 seconds to grab Kyle's tire iron. 5 seconds to swing it one more time. Hard enough to make the men scatter. Hard enough to make them retreat to their SUV and peel out, leaving dust and blood and silence behind. The woman rushed over. Cal tried to stand. Couldn't. His body was done. She knelt beside him, hands already moving, checking his pulse, his breathing, his wounds. I'm a nurse, she said. Stay with me. Her name was Marion Hayes, 28 years old, on her way home from a double shift at a hospital in Vegas. She had no reason to stop, no reason to get involved. But she did. She loaded Cal into her car, drove him not to a hospital, where questions would be asked, but to a friend's place. A quiet house off the grid. She stitched him up, gave him fluids, kept him stable. And when the men who attacked him came looking, she lied. Told them she hadn't seen anything. Took the risk. Kept him hidden for 3 days until his brothers could come get him. She never asked for money. Never asked for protection. Never even asked his name. She just did what she thought was right. And then she disappeared back into her life like nothing had happened. But Cal didn't forget. None of them did. When he healed, when the club regrouped, they tried to find her. Tried to thank her. Tried to repay the debt. But Marion had moved. Changed her number. Stayed off the grid. All they had was her first name and the memory of what she'd done. So Cal made a decision. He had the club's tattoo artist draw up something special. A skull with wings. The club's mark. But with one small difference. A flaw in the design. A deliberate imperfection that only the brothers would recognize. And he had it inked onto his own chest. A reminder. A promise. That if Marion Hayes ever needed them, they would come. No questions. No hesitation. No matter the cost. He told the story to every new member who joined the club. Made it part of the chapter's history. The woman who stopped when no one else would. The woman who saved a brother and asked for nothing in return. Some of the younger members thought it was just a legend. A story the old-timers told to romanticize the code. But the veterans knew better. They knew Cal Mercer didn't make promises lightly. And they knew that tattoo on his chest wasn't decoration. It was a vow. Years passed. The club grew. Brothers came and went. The story of the woman who saved Cal became legend inside the chapter. But outside, nobody knew. Marion never told anyone. Not her mother. Not her friends. She just kept living her quiet life, working her shifts, staying out of trouble. She moved to a small town outside Flagstaff. Took a job at a local clinic. Bought a modest house. Lived simply. Her mother, Eleanor, moved in with her a few years later after her husband passed away. The 2 women became each other's world. Quiet. Peaceful. Safe. Or so they thought. Until one night, 12 years later, when Marianne's car broke down on a dark highway outside Flagstaff. She called her mother. Told her she was fine. Told her not to worry. But Eleanor heard something in her daughter's voice. Something that didn't sit right. So she got in her car and started driving. And on the way, she stopped at a diner. Just to collect herself. Just to think. And that's when 6 Hells Angels walked through the door. Now back to that moment. Cal Mercer standing over Eleanor Hayes, staring down at this old woman who just said a name he hadn't heard in over a decade. His mind was racing. His heart was pounding. He turned to his brothers. Gave them a look. And without a word, they understood. One of them, a man named Richie, pulled out a phone, started making calls. Another, a younger rider named Jake, stepped outside, checked the parking lot. The rest stayed close to Cal, watching, waiting. Eleanor didn't move. She just sat there, hands still folded, eyes still steady. But inside, her heart was hammering. She didn't know what she'd just triggered, didn't know the weight of the name she'd spoken. "Where is she?" Cal asked. His voice was quieter now, almost gentle. Eleanor's composure cracked just a little. "Her car broke down. About 15 miles north of here. She called me an hour ago. I was on my way to get her, but I needed to stop. Needed to breathe. Needed to think." Cal nodded. He knew that fear. The kind that sits in your chest and makes it hard to think straight. The kind that makes your hands shake even when you're trying to stay calm. He sat down across from her. Slowly, carefully, like he didn't want to scare her. "Ma'am," he said, "your daughter saved my life. And if she's out there alone, we're going to make sure she's safe." Eleanor blinked, confused. "I don't understand. She never mentioned anything like this." Cal leaned forward, elbows on the table. "That tattoo she has. It's not just a tattoo. It's a mark, a promise. And it means she's under our protection. Always. No matter what." Eleanor's eyes widened. "She never told me. I've seen the tattoo. Asked her about it once. She just said it was a reminder of something important. Wouldn't say more." "She wouldn't," Cal said. "She's the kind of person who does the right thing and then walks away. Doesn't ask for credit. Doesn't look for recognition. Just moves on. But we don't forget. And we don't let debts go unpaid." He stood up, looked at his brothers. "We ride. Now." Richie pocketed his phone. "Club knows. They're standing by if we need backup." Cal nodded. "Good. Let's move." The diner was still silent, still frozen. But now the fear had shifted. It wasn't aimed at the bikers anymore. It was aimed at whatever was out there in the dark. Whatever might be a threat to Marion Hayes. Because if you messed with someone under the protection of the Hells Angels, you weren't just picking a fight. You were choosing a war. Eleanor stood up too. "I'm coming with you." Cal started to protest, but she cut him off. "That's my daughter out there. I don't care how dangerous it is. I'm coming." Cal looked at her, saw the steel in her eyes. The same steel Marion must have had when she stopped on that desert road 12 years ago. The same courage that made her risk everything for a stranger. He nodded. "All right, but you ride with me. And you hold on tight." 5 minutes later, they were on the highway. 6 motorcycles roaring through the night, headlights cutting through the darkness like knives. Eleanor sat behind Cal, arms wrapped tight around his waist, heart pounding in her chest. She'd never been on a bike before, never imagined she would be. The wind whipped at her face. The engine roared beneath her. Every instinct told her to be terrified, but she wasn't, because for the first time in hours, she felt like maybe, just maybe, her daughter was going to be okay. The bikes moved in formation. Tight, controlled, professional. These weren't just riders. They were a unit. A brotherhood that operated with precision and purpose. Jake rode point, scanning the road ahead. Richie brought up the rear, watching for anything behind them. The others flanked Cal, creating a protective barrier around Eleanor. But they weren't the only ones on the road that night. About 2 miles behind them, a black pickup truck was following. No headlights, just shadows and intent. Inside, a man named Derek Pitts gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles. He was drunk, angry, and looking for someone to blame. Earlier that night, he'd been thrown out of a bar for getting too aggressive with a woman who turned him down. That woman was Marion Hayes. She'd been polite, firm, clear, but Derek didn't take rejection well. He'd grown up in a town where men like him thought they were entitled to whatever they wanted. Where no wasn't an answer, it was a challenge. He followed her out to the parking lot. Started shouting. Started threatening. Called her names. Told her she'd regret walking away from him. Marion didn't engage. Didn't respond. She got in her car and drove off before things got worse. But Derek wasn't done. He got in his truck and followed her. Stayed far enough back that she wouldn't notice. Waited for his opportunity. And then her car started sputtering. The engine coughed. The dashboard lights flickered. Mary Ann's hands tightened on the wheel as she realized what was happening. She pulled over to the shoulder just as the engine died completely. Silence. Darkness. Nothing but empty highway stretching in both directions. She tried to restart the car. Nothing. She checked her phone. 1 bar of signal. Barely enough. She dialed her mother. The call connected, but the line was breaking up. "Mom, my car broke down. I'm on Highway 89, about 15 miles north of town. I'm okay, but I need help." The line crackled. Eleanor's voice came through in fragments. "Stay in the car. Lock the doors. I'm coming." And then the signal dropped. Mary Ann sat there in the darkness, hands shaking, trying to stay calm. She locked the doors, kept the windows up, tried to convince herself everything would be fine. And then headlights appeared behind her. Derek pulled up next to her car, got out, started banging on her window. "You think you can just walk away from me?" he shouted. "You think you're too good for me?" Mary Ann didn't open the door, didn't engage. She just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, praying someone would come. Derek's voice got louder, angrier. "I'm talking to you. Open the door." He pounded on the glass, tried the handle, kicked the side of the car. Mary Ann's heart was racing. She fumbled for her phone. No signal. No way to call for help. She was alone, trapped, and Derek wasn't stopping. And then, in the distance, she heard it. The rumble of motorcycles. Getting louder. Getting closer. Derek heard it too. He stepped back from the car, squinting into the darkness. And then 6 bikes came roaring around the corner, headlights blazing, engines screaming. They pulled up in a tight formation around Mary Ann's car, cut their engines, and the night went quiet again. Cal got off his bike, helped Eleanor down. She ran to her daughter's car, pulled the door open, and wrapped her arms around Mary Ann. "You're okay," she whispered. "You're okay. I'm here. You're safe." Mary Ann was shaking, crying. She held on to her mother like a lifeline. "Mom, I was so scared. I didn't know what to do." "I know, baby. I know. But you're safe now." But Cal wasn't looking at them. He was looking at Derek, who was standing there, swaying, trying to act tough, but clearly terrified. The smell of alcohol hung around him like a cloud. His eyes were bloodshot, his movements unsteady, but there was still aggression in his posture, still defiance in his voice. "This your car?" Cal asked, nodding toward the pickup. Derek didn't answer, just stared at the 6 men in leather vests surrounding him. "I asked you a question," Cal said. His voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes before a storm. Derek's voice cracked. "Yeah. So what?" Cal took a step forward. "So you need to leave. Now. Or what?" Derek said, trying to sound brave, trying to convince himself he wasn't outmatched. Cal didn't blink. "Or you're going to find out what happens when you threaten someone under our protection." Derek looked at the 6 men standing behind Cal, looked at their vests, their patches, their eyes, and whatever alcohol-fueled courage he had left evaporated. He stumbled back toward his truck. "She's not worth it anyway," he muttered. "Just some stuck-up woman who thinks she's better than everyone." Cal's jaw tightened. "Get in your truck and drive away before I change my mind about letting you walk." Derek got in, started the engine, and drove off without another word. His taillights disappeared into the darkness, and the highway went quiet again. Mary Ann was still shaking, still crying. Eleanor held her close, stroking her hair, whispering reassurances. Cal walked over slowly, took off his vest, and showed her the tattoo on his chest, the skull with wings, the same design Mary Ann had on her shoulder. "I never forgot what you did for me," he said quietly, "and I never will." Mary Ann looked up at him, recognition dawning slowly. Her eyes widened. "You," she whispered. "You're the one I pulled off the highway. In Vegas. 12 years ago." Cal nodded. "You saved my life. And now we've returned the favor." She stared at him, memories flooding back. The blood, the dust, the fear, the choice she'd made to stop when anyone else would have kept driving. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again," she said. "I didn't even know your name." "Cal Mercer," he said. "And this is my family." He gestured to the men behind him. Richie, Jake, Danny, Leon, and Frankie. Every one of them knows what you did. Every one of them would ride 1,000 miles to make sure you're safe. Mary Ann's eyes filled with tears again. But this time, they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of something she couldn't quite put into words. Cal pulled something out of his pocket. A small metal coin. Worn. Heavy. It had the club's insignia on one side and a single word on the other. Brother, this is yours, he said, handing it to her. If you ever need us again, you call. Doesn't matter when. Doesn't matter where. We'll come. That's a promise. Mary Ann took the coin, held it tight in her palm, felt the weight of it, the meaning behind it. Thank you, she said. Thank you so much. Cal nodded. No, thank you. You didn't have to stop that night. You didn't have to risk your life for strangers. But you did. And that's something we'll never forget. Richie stepped forward. We're going to get your car towed. And we're going to make sure you and your mom get home safe. Jake added. And if that guy comes back, he's going to wish he hadn't. Mary Ann managed a small smile. I think he got the message. Cal put his vest back on. Let's get moving. We'll follow you back into town. Make sure nobody else gets any ideas. The bikers worked quickly. Richie made a call to a tow truck driver who owed the club a favor. Within 20 minutes, Mary Ann's car was being loaded onto a flatbed. Eleanor and Mary Ann got into Eleanor's car, and the convoy started moving again. 6 motorcycles escorting a sedan through the night. Slow, steady, watchful. As they rode, Eleanor glanced in her rearview mirror at the headlights behind her, at the men society had taught her to fear, at the brotherhood that had come to her daughter's rescue without hesitation. She thought about all the times she'd crossed the street to avoid groups of bikers, all the times she'd assumed the worst, and she felt ashamed, because the truth was right in front of her. These men weren't monsters. They were protectors. They were loyal. They were honorable. And they had just proven that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about debt.